Hello and welcome to On a Mission, the show where we share inspiring conversations with phenomenal women who are creating success and prosperity in their lives with purpose and passion. I'm Pauline Rohdich, a success mindset coach and clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm on a personal mission to remind you that you are a beautiful soul and you have so much potential. And my intention for this show is to give you the nudge to answer your own calling and to rise up and take on your life's mission. So welcome everybody to this episode of On a Mission, and it's my great pleasure today to introduce you to a wonderful lady that I had the pleasure of meeting. We both attended and trained together on the Empower Her program back in September of 2017. It was the first business program, if you like, for entrepreneur women in Ireland. And I had the great pleasure to meet Elaine Kennedy of Hawthorn Skincare. So Elaine, you're so incredibly welcome to the show of On a Mission, and I know you are on a mission. So look, say hello and introduce yourself to everybody watching and listening, and tell us all about your wonderful business and how you arrived. So let's start at the beginning, but let me give you a place to start. So look, you are living in the beautiful County Mayo. Tell us the inspiration behind your business.
Well, Pauline, thanks so much for having me on your wonderful show.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here with you.
So I am the founder and creator of Hawthorn Handmade skincare. And I'm based here on my family farm in the heart of County Mayo. And to be a little bit more precise, I'm in the village of Kilkieran, which is on the shores of the beautiful Lough Cara. So people may know Partry. It's quite a central area in Mayo, not too far from Westport. And my business is based here. I have a custom-built manufacturing studio. So that's where I'm speaking to you from today.
And this is amazing. It looks so great. It looks fabulous.
Thanks, Pauline. You have to visit soon when the restrictions.
Well, that was my intention once upon a time, Elaine. We did discuss that before, and I have sampled some of your products. And in fact, I ordered some of your products through Aveline O'Sullivan's Bloom in a Box there for my beautiful niece for her 17th birthday, the hand cream and the lip balm.
Lovely.
So that they're definitely a luxurious product. They're absolutely beautiful. But again, as you say, this whole began on your family farm. But like you went away for a few years before that, and before you started the business. So you were over in London for a number of years.
Yes, that's true, Pauline. I went to London. I suppose I had the ambition of moving into visual merchandising. That's what I had been doing, and I wanted to further a career in that. But I ended up working in the head office of a high-end fashion retail company called Jigsaw.
Yeah, know it well.
It's a fabulous company, and I loved working there. But it's kind of funny because I ended up working in their customer service department within their e-commerce team.
Yeah.
And this actually strategically was a brilliant role to get.
Yeah.
Because it allowed me to see the inner workings of a company like that. And also in my role in customer service, I had a relationship with everyone within the business, from the buyers to the directors, the pattern cutters, the copy team, licensing team. So it was a brilliant way for me to get to understand how a business like that worked. And I suppose I had been there over 2 years. And I was thinking, ooh, if only I could work here, but live in the west of Ireland.
Yeah.
So at that time, that wasn't quite practical. But I started to think, well, maybe I should look at starting my own business. And as it happened, my passion was crafting. And for many, many years, I produced my own skincare products, and I had a particular passion for making handmade soap.
Lovely.
So that led me to think, well, you know, maybe I should look at starting a craft business on my family farm.
Great. And what, like, did you add that, like, were you using, if you like, some of the ingredients already from the farm for your own skincare prior to even going to London?
I would have used locally produced ingredients where possible. I suppose when I went to London, then I became aware of a huge variety of ingredients. And I also came to understand that some companies use, they bulk out their formulations with synthetic ingredients.
Yeah.
And again, that got me thinking about what I was putting on my skin, because I was still using other cosmetics at that point.
Yes.
And I very much bought into some of the skincare routines that all those lovely companies produce. And maybe I didn't have the confidence in my own creations at that point. But the more I experimented with my ingredients, the more I realized that, you know, they actually worked, and I saw the difference in my skin.
Yeah.
So
well, I have to say, your skin does look beautiful. Again, you're a wonderful example of what you're doing, I have to admit. Beautiful.
thank you, Paul.
And would you have had, like, was there any inspiration around perhaps maybe that some of the products that you had used on the main market, the commercial brands, didn't agree with you? Is that what inspired you to do your own in the first place?
Yeah, you know what? I had always been told I had combination skin, yet I was told that there was really no product on the market that would help my skin.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a little bit dry and always a little bit oily, and there was just nothing that would balance it. So I started, I suppose I implemented more of my own creations in my skincare routine, and suddenly my skin had never been better. So at that point, I just cut out everything, all the commercial products, I cut them out. And, you know, since then, my skin, it's just gotten better. It has gotten better. And I don't have the problems that I used to have.
Amazing. Amazing. I know. But the journey, you know, so you came back from London and you'd done all these courses in London to help you with the whole idea of the craft business and the formulations, etc. And you decided to come back to the west of Ireland. So, I mean, Hawthorn is the name of your business, but it's deliberately chosen because actually Hawthorn is one of the ingredients that you're using. So tell us all about that.
So Hawthorn is, I suppose, it is the inspiration behind the business. Now, I do have to correct you, Pauline, in that I don't use any of the Hawthorn ingredient plant in my products. So it is just the name behind the brand.
Oh, I actually thought now, and obviously I didn't brush up actually on that before we actually started. So yes, this is raw and real, guys. I do make mistakes. But the thing is, I honestly thought, now, of course, I'm going right back to 2017 when I heard you speak first. So I actually thought perhaps on some level that you were using some of the flowers perhaps from the plant. So, okay, correct me.
Yeah, it was
all about that then.
Yeah, so, you know, it is all about experimentation. And, you know, perhaps quite early on, I thought I could bring in some of that into the ingredients. But there's a technical element to it as well. So if I was using the likes of Hawthorn, I would have to start using a synthetic preservative.
Okay.
So from there, it's, you know, process of elimination, you know, what ingredients can I use that are effective? And I don't have to use synthetic ingredients to help them work.
Okay, no, that's amazing. And I mean, how did you figure all this out? I mean, to me, like, I mean, I'm just not that way inclined at all. I mean, I freely will admit that it's just not my thing. However, I'm curious about it. I'm intrigued by it, and I'm always interested in finding out. So, I mean, how do you even begin to think what to put with what? You know, where does that begin? I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I think there's a bit of an alchemist perhaps in you, that you can just get into your studio. Do you feel that way? Do you feel?
Yeah, I think so, Pauline. Yeah, absolutely. And I thoroughly love working with the ingredients, and it is fascinating when you start to understand how the ingredients are, what they're made of, what the individual molecules are. And
But where do you find that information out? This is the thing. I mean, where do you find out how something that's in the earth, is going to help? Where do you figure that out? Excuse my ignorance, but I am interested.
Yeah, when I was still living in London, I attended formulation workshops, and I did courses in that. So that helped me understand. But prior to that, a lot of this I was reading about in books. I was already educating myself. There's some wonderful books available. If you think about all the herbal remedies that have been in use for many thousands of years in some cases.
Yeah.
So firstly, we already have a great knowledge of how different ingredients work and what their benefits are. And then I suppose I just further educate myself by making use of all the wonderful courses and workshops that are available out there.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it really and truly is a bit like, I suppose, the chef with the ingredients and somebody just, trying things out. Again, like, I mean, I could say in the kitchen, it's a complete hit and miss, shall we say. I mean, I enjoy cooking, don't get me wrong. And of course I can follow a recipe, but I've never really had that kind of spontaneous flair, we'll say, to add a new ingredient into cooking, for example. So I'm fascinated, because essentially that's what you're doing, isn't it? I mean, you're putting a recipe together of ingredients. So what is the main ingredient that you're using in your products?
I have quite a few products in the range, actually. So let me just show you a few of them, Pauline.
Absolutely.
So one of my best-selling products is my rejuvenating face balm. The main ingredient in this is shea butter. And it is from the shea nut. It's extracted from the shea nut, and it has a high content of shea, which is renowned for its rejuvenating properties. So this also includes apricot kernel oil. I also have rose geranium in this. So if you just inhale the fragrance, you can really...
I can smell it. I love geranium. I just think it's very uplifting. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Well, what's actually on the farm, though? I have to ask you that. What is on your farm that you're using?
So, again, at the moment, I don't have anything here that I produce on site.
Okay.
Just simply because it would be too time consuming for me to produce the ingredient, and also use it in the products.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. So I use, for example, I have an Irish producer for hemp seed oil. Lovely. So that comes from Meath.
Great.
He's farming it, he's producing it, and he is extracting the oil from the seeds. Great. So that in itself is a production. That's one manufacturing element. So I simply wouldn't be able to do that here. I have thought about it in the past, so it's something I have thought about. But for the volume of ingredient that I would need to be producing, it just wouldn't be realistic for me to do that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I suppose the key thing is that I've created a manufacturing area here, and it's based on the farm. This is where everything is made, but I'm getting my ingredients from incredible producers.
Fantastic.
So they're doing all the hard work of nurturing the plants and extracting the oils, and then I'm using them in my products.
I just think it's absolutely fantastic. I really think what you're doing is amazing. And I'm so happy for you. I mean, here we are talking for almost 4 years later, and it's a real dream now for you. But what have been the biggest challenges? Because obviously there's people listening to this, watching this, that perhaps are thinking of doing something similar, maybe have a similar passion as you do for craft. What would you say to them in terms of the learning curve in your business, and maybe some of the mistakes that you've made, how you've learned from it? What advice would you have for people?
Yeah, I suppose for me, I think the biggest challenge that I have had to overcome in my business, and probably a life challenge as well, is it's a fear of everything, Pauline.
I know.
I was
Tell me
always
about it. Yes, I know. I think it's a good sign though, because you see, if people could look at fear as really a sign that they're about to grow, if they can just push through, they're actually going to grow. Would you say that as a result of getting the other side? I'm always trying to share this with people, clients and just friends and family alike, that the other side of the fear, which obviously you've clearly conquered, is never as scary. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree, Pauline. And you know, even things like I was in a situation where I was sitting in a room full of people and I'd been concentrating so hard on what was being said that I didn't get the full information, because I had really latched on to one statement. So at the end, I asked a question, and my question was out of context because I hadn't listened to the next part of the story. And everybody in the room laughed at me.
Wow.
Everyone laughed, and I was mortified.
And where was this? What kind of a situation was this?
Oh, it was a business setting.
Okay.
So it was at a business event. This was about, I would say, maybe about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I was mortified. And this was my worst nightmare. You know what? Nothing bad happened. It was absolutely fine. And in a way, I'm glad I had that experience, because I came out of it and I thought, oh, you know, that hasn't affected me. You know, actually, it's helped me get over a fear because I understand now that the world hasn't ended.
Exactly. Just what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
So maybe people laugh, which is not very nice, but I mean, at the end of the day, were you able to sort of explain yourself that actually, I'm sorry, I didn't listen? Did you speak up? And did you respond to the laughter and explain yourself, or?
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably everybody understood where I was coming from, but nobody would say, maybe nobody had the courage to say, oh, Elaine, I think you've misunderstood. So actually, you know what? I learned more about the people around me when that happened. So
interesting.
It was an interesting learning. You know what? You know, this was one of my fears, and it happened. And
what was the fear though around that? What was the actual fear you had? One of your fears. What was the actual fear?
I suppose something that would have I would always have worried about is that maybe, you know, I didn't have so this was kind of a bit of a barrier that I always had. I always felt impeded in maybe speaking in front of.
Unfortunately, Elaine.
Yeah.
It froze. I'm afraid our internet froze there. Sorry, everybody. The internet, there's very little I can do about that, but it just froze. So the fear was of more or less of public speaking. Is that what you were saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But even I could break that down even more. And even just, you know, in general conversations, yeah, quite often I wouldn't be comfortable speaking, you know, because it just, maybe it was a thing that, you know, I'd be worried that I'm not saying the right thing. So there was a lot maybe there at the back of it.
Well, I mean, look, the most common thing, I think, number one is this fear of public speaking is probably on the top there in terms of our fears. You know, it really and truly is for the majority of people, fear of being judged, fear of being criticized, and the fear around not being good enough, and maybe what you're putting together is not good enough. But thank God you pursued. What was it? Do you feel, you know, what would you say was the reason why you have continued and now you have this wonderful, successful business? Now, I know you've had to pivot with COVID, like most businesses, because your stockists are closed. Yes, and of course, you've been able to do that. But I mean, I generally ask people on the show about their connection with the higher self, God, spirit. Do you believe that you are connected to a higher purpose, to God, the universe? What do you call it? And if so, when do you feel closest to that energy?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that, you know, spirituality is something that's always been important to me. And I suppose I feel it most having grown up in this area. It's a beautiful area renowned for its biodiversity. It's also, so we have archaeological evidence that there's been settlement here for 30,000 years. And when I go out, you know, just in this small area, you know, we can see the evidence that there was people here before us.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we also have a great connection to, you know, our Christian heritage. I'm not too far from Ballintubber Abbey. It's just down the lake from us. So quite often you'll be out walking and you'll hear the Abbey bells ringing out, and it carries across the water.
So one of my most favorite sounds is just bells. I just absolutely adore it as well. I don't know, it really, really connects, just touches the heart, doesn't it?
It really does. And I think you know, you put all of that together, your sense of heritage, and when you go out and you immerse yourself in nature, and you have, I suppose, especially here with the water, and there's something about spiritual about water, being close to water, I always find. So all I have to do is walk out my door, and we have a beautiful area on our farm that we can walk. And you know, you just think there has to be something moving all of this.
Yeah, no, I tell you, it sounds magical what you're describing. It sounds really inspirational. So that just well, I find it too. Outdoors for me, I just absolutely need to be outside every single day. Walking in nature is just, for me, the closest connection, apart from breathing consciously in my body. I feel just that beautiful connection to something greater than me. So in terms of your mission, what really is the mission for Elaine and Hawthorn Skincare going forward?
So the mission, it really is based around having this craft business in a rural area and creating a beautiful product using natural ingredients. So I suppose the next step for me would be to grow that. You know, you've heard me talk about the connection I have with the area and that feeling of spirituality. And I would love to expand my workspace, that I can offer, you know, maybe some kind of element of a wellness, so that you'll be able to come in and have an experience, either
treatment. Do you think treatment?
Yeah,
so somebody
exactly.
actually like a therapist doing facials and various things like that.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. And Elaine, if you could have dinner with one person that would be someone that you feel that would, you know, influence you and inspire you, who would it be?
So I came across, well, I already knew about her, but I had the privilege of taking part in an event last year, in a virtual event. And Samantha Barry, the editor-in-chief of Glamour, was the guest speaker. And I just thought she was fabulous. And I would be quite drawn to people who are, you know, very clued in what's going on in the world, and, you know, the trends. And I put a high value on that. I suppose comes down to me being here in the studio working on making the product. And sometimes I'm not always aware about what's going on in the world around me.
You're in your own world.
Exactly.
And actually, the second guest that I've had on that has mentioned this lady, what's her first name again? Samantha.
Samantha.
I had another guest called Sabrina who does Russo jewelry. She's again making her own jewelry, and so I'll have to definitely check out Samantha. I'm not really aware of her and I'm not familiar with her, but I know I need to be. Obviously, it's twice I've heard her name recently. But in terms of books, what are you reading at the moment?
So again, when I'm here in the studio, I quite like to have an audiobook playing in the background.
Yeah.
So I have just started Gina DeVee, The Audacity to be Queen.
Very good.
So I'd maybe heard of her before, but didn't really know too much. So I've just started that. I'm getting into it. But the other book that I have on quite often, again, I have it in my audiobook library, is Tara Moore, Playing Big. So I'd be a big fan of her, and I would dip in regularly and listen to snippets of her.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the second lady, but I am familiar with Gina DeVee. I have to say, she's a coach. She's a life coach.
Exactly.
American lady. Yeah, no, I've watched her, followed her, done one or two things that she's put online in the past myself. So what would your favorite quote be and why?
Oh, so it has to be, nature never hurries, yet all is accomplished.
Love it. Who said that?
Oh gosh, you've put me on the spot, Pauline.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Nature never hurries, but all is accomplished. It would be suggesting to me the law of least effort. You know, I teach Deepak Chopra's 7 spiritual laws of yoga success based on the principles of nature. And the law of least effort is just saying that really, nature never hurries. We should all be emulating nature and just following. There's a season for everything, and you know, plant the seed, we look after it, it will grow. If we take our attention off it, it will wither and die. But that's a beautiful quote, actually, I have to say.
And I feel it fits with my business because you know, it is a handmade business, and I have to nurture that and make sure that I am doing as much as I'm capable of. And you know, quite often I would feel under pressure to do more all the time. So I have to remind myself, you know, it will happen as long as I nurture it.
Oh, 100%. That is a great advice, actually, for yourself, but also for anybody listening, because I think we're all guilty of this. We're not doing enough, which probably underneath that is the idea that I'm not enough unless I'm doing more. So it's very self-deprecating and obviously self-critical. So yes, a beautiful, I think the law of least effort needs to be part of everyday's experience. And I suppose when you're surrounded with the beauty that you're surrounded with, it's very easy, isn't it, just to switch off. Whereas obviously you've lived in London, I've lived in London, obviously I'm from Dublin, I've traveled to many big cities in the world. It's a lot of busyness. And so it's very difficult sometimes to have that ease and step off, you know, the treadmill. But it's so important, isn't it? It's vitally important, though, to have balance in business, to take care of yourself on every level, mind, body, and spirit. I mean, that's what I would be suggesting to everybody, is just, it's so incredibly important. And just, in the being part and just easing off and making, you know, making time to go out to nature, then the ideas will come. Would you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Pauline. And I would find that quite often myself, you know, it's when you take the time to just disconnect, and quite often you're not even thinking about, you know, maybe there is an issue, problem that has arose, and quite often you're not even thinking about it,
And then
but an answer will
the
present
solution
itself.
comes. Yeah, the solution comes. But I mean, there's a good reason for that, because when we force, it actually negates. We're actually repelling and we're actually contracting, and therefore we're not allowing the flow of inspiration to come to us. So look, just before we finish, I have to ask you about who your biggest influence is in your life that has caused you to do what you do.
Oh, I suppose I don't make any secret of the fact that my mum and dad, Seamus and Kathleen, would have very much instilled in me a love of the nature around me. And that's why, you know, being based here on my family farm is so important to me. So they would very much have a love for, you know, the nature, the biodiversity, and also a duty to look after that.
Fantastic. It's wonderful to have that. And I have seen on some of your social media how your mom is in the studio helping you to pack and put the things together. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's really, really lovely. How involved is she really? You know, would she be with you every day, or is it just once in a while?
No, no, she would be with me every day,
Wow.
absolutely. And I have to say, my dad as well would be involved. He would do what he can do. But you know, I often say to them, would you ever have thought in your wildest dreams that you would be helping, that you would be working in a natural skincare business? So I suppose
I'm sure they're very proud of you, Elaine. It's a wonderful thing to have your parents, number one,
yeah.
and to have them involved and to just be, you know, so connected to nature around you. I think it's phenomenal what you're doing, and your products are fantastic. Although I do need to get some supplies in, I have to say. Now, obviously with COVID, you've had to pivot as well. So tell people how they can avail of your products if they're interested. What's the
Yes,
best way?
so
Do you
the
have
best,
an online presence now?
the best way is online at hawthornhandmadeskincare.com.
Okay, and
So
we'll put the link with the show for you, so don't worry about
thank you,
that.
Pauline.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and you have a little special promotional code that people can use.
Yes, so I'll make that available to you. All you have to do is pop your code in at the checkout, and there'll be a special one for your customers, for your clients and your followers, Pauline.
Fantastic.
So I'll share that code with you afterwards.
Wonderful, and we'll get it up. So look, Elaine, a great pleasure, I have to say, in meeting you again, albeit virtually, and for doing this wonderful chat with us. And just your phenomenal background and your passion is so evident in what you're doing, and I know that translates into your products. And as I said earlier, you are a beautiful example of your amazing product. Your skin looks stunning, and I know you have hand products. And have you actually just moved into body products? I just want to know that as well. Do you do body products?
Yes, yeah, I have a full range of skincare for the face and body.
Magical. Does it suit both men and women?
Yes, absolutely. And do you know what? Even if the men don't buy it for themselves, they'll certainly end up using it.
Great. No, it's good. I mean, we're always trying to keep the men involved, even though this is kind of very much a women show, a show for women, if you like. But the men seem to be creeping in a lot. I think we need to look after them, you know. And I think I know somebody might say, Pauline, no, we don't. But what I'm saying is we need to include them. And why I really am saying that is, this is what my real intention behind that was. Let me correct myself. The women are rising on this planet, and we are going to redirect some of these guys and help them to become better. And I do feel that our female presence is required. So I had a lovely lady on, Erica from Mum Tribe, in fact, on the last episode. And, you know, she's been helping mothers that, you know, from while they're pregnant to having children and onto the teenage years. And we spoke about what about the dads. So that is in the pipeline too, because I think we need to be inclusive. Everybody needs to be involved on this journey. Elaine, I wish you every success going forward. And again, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank
So for
you,
everybody,
Pauline.
you're most welcome. And for everybody listening, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of On a Mission. And if you are a woman on a mission, I want to hear from you. Please reach out, let me know. And I'd love to have you as a guest on the show to share your journey and your passion and your purpose. And that's what it's about. And we'll help others to come out of hiding, which is part of my mission, is to help women who have this dream inside of them. But now I want to show you that it is possible. There's plenty of challenges along the way, but it is so possible. And most importantly, as you can hear from Elaine and other guests, it is worth it, because you're worth it. Everybody's worth it. So let's have some fun along the way. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this show so that you will be notified when the next episode is released. And remember, keep believing. You're amazing and you have so much to give. Now is your time.